Back at it again. Take two. So, with that being the case, wanted to check in for a little late night chit chat, see who's available this Friday evening. Got a couple things I wanted to share in regards to the chain of events that occurred this week, and a lot of it has to do with the unconventional or not usual or not typical response towards someone shooting at you. And so, typically, based upon how things usually go in the past, if there's an aggression from a nation that's supposed to be your enemy that you're already out to get, if they send some missiles your way, typically you respond right away. But for some reason, that hasn't been the case. So it leads me to wonder exactly what's going on. And so I wanted to find out what you guys think, and I want to share my thoughts because clearly this is all part of a bigger plan. But yeah, it's just very confusing. So with that being the case, welcome to this RTD Live Talk stream. And so this is my second go around due to the fact that the prior stream I started from a different phone. So once again, buffing. So clearly this is an indication that I'm not supposed to be streaming tonight. This is what this is telling me, because in the midst of streaming, I've never had this warning saying buffering, reconnecting, and then it gave me an option of ending the stream or continuing the stream. I click continue. So it's good to say I might not be able to actually have this live stream. And due to the fact and the very title itself, I knew that if I put some names, then more than likely I would have issues. So I thought I put flags in the title to give you an idea as to what's going on here. But once again, it's very interesting. Friday night. It's good to say not too many people are live streaming Friday night. But yeah, for some reason, I'm having issues with YouTube. So might get kicked off any minute now. So I want to get right into it. So that being the case, today, as came across an article, didn't have a chance to get into the news much, but it looks like we got Steve Mnuchin and Pompeo talking about sanctions. And so it's not too often that when someone shoots at you, that you decide to attack them in their pocketbooks. Like, you hit them in the wallet, like you hit it where it hurts in the wallet. So clearly this is my first thing came to mind is that Trump, more than likely, he knew that if something was to escalate, he was going to divert attention from it and deliberately dial things back, because I'm more than confident that he's aware of the fact that the U.S. and the world, for the most part, don't really want to go down the war pathway, because it won't just be two countries involved. So what my opinion, this is what I'm guessing. Let me know via chat. Give me a call as well, 313-462-0027, and share your thoughts. But my guess and my hypothesis as to what just transpired this past week has a lot to do with the fact that I think Trump perhaps was deliberately trying to piss off some people, ideally the warmongers amongst the population, those that are heavily invested and stood to make a lot of war if the U.S. decided to respond militarily. Because once again, if you start sending missiles back and forth, then that means there's going to be a ramp up back here at home of war talk, of the need for funding for war, as well as the whole narrative of, we got to defend our turf. We got to defend ourselves. We were just shot at. We have to go back, and now we have to prove that we are the strongest, this and that and that and whatever. But that wasn't the typical response. And I imagine once those missiles started to fly, that the people who are opposing Trump or behind Trump or whatever we want to call it, they deliberately were excited and ramped up and ready to go. But that wasn't the case. And so I want to say that this weekend or next week, I think I can see something around the lines of another type of escalation of some kind that will be pinpointed back to Iran, which will make it hard to not respond militarily. Because once again, let me know if I'm wrong, but if someone shoots at you, you don't shoot back, and you're supposed to be big and bad, that kind of makes you look soft, or makes you look like Perhaps you're full of hot air. So I'm curious to find out what you guys think. Let me check in with the chat and so see. Let me go back up here. And as always, getting off to a rough start due to some issues here. But we got Vutran says hello. We got Blake Wood says, okay, now we're back. We're up talking to yourself for an hour. You were talking to yourself for an hour. No, I wasn't talking to myself for an hour because the on my other phone, the app just died. So it was no talking. So it was nothing on my screen. Spirit King, we got Big Worm, we got Kenneth, we got Lertis, we got, okay, I can't pronounce that, Hill, buffering again. So that's kind of old. Said, did you see the video with the guy who leaked the 5 countries, lastly being Iran, who we are planning to attack, targeting with Iraq? Yes, it's one of the military generals. I can't think of it offhand, but that was old. It's a very old video, which kind of gave the heads up as to what the game plan was all along. So the fact that we are not currently shooting back, even though they shot at us, is kind of odd. But I believe that's a part of Trump's twisted way of just shaking things up. It's hard to really read this guy because he talks big and bad on Twitter, but then again, he says that no U.S. intel, there's no lives lost, this and that, whatever. So he completely admitted that we were shot at, that some stuff did hit the ground or whatever. No one was hurt. And then I actually saw tonight, I think it was from Zero Hedge, I actually saw something that was referring to Iran actually gave the U.S. a heads up and saying, I think, that we were going to send something your way, be prepared. So, yeah, the mainstream media painting a very dark and dim narrative to it. Like there's missiles in the air and they show pictures of rockets firing off. And then we got the whole Ukraine plane. I guess either it was today or tomorrow, they're going to come out and announce as to what officially happened, as if you typically don't really need all that to happen. Expat from Russia in the house. G Shep, how you doing, my friend? Damn YouTube. So I'm way back in the chat. So let me get caught up. Spirit King says the Iraqi said for the U.S. to be the country, the U.S. is now refusing. Iraq is now being occupied by terrorists again. That's another great point. Once the official governmental parliament, all the governing officials were in that building when they said it's time to expel the U.S. from our country. So right at that moment, the law, they hit the gavel, bam, that was law. Now the U.S., on the other hand, by them not leaving, as you mentioned, Spirit, is a very good way of saying that technically they are unwanted guests in a country in which they've already, for the last 20 whatever years, ravaged, destroyed. And unfortunately, there's been more Iraqi lives lost due to war and just as casualties of war. But I remember hearing years ago during the prior administration on all the military activity that happened over from drone strikes and how accidentally drones were bombs were being dropped on a house or a hut or whatever with one suspected terrorist in it, but it'll have 20 innocent bystanders and everybody's gone. So, apparently when it comes to war, there's no rules. All rules are off because I don't know the count officially, but there's been more innocent lives lost than there actually been on the suspected target. So I guess it's unfortunate. So imagine if you were in Iraq or in any of those countries where you were invaded by foreigners. So everywhere you look in your country, there's somebody that doesn't speak your language, that doesn't care about you, period, walking down the streets, patrolling your streets. That's just not a good way to live. And that's unfortunately how it is over there. It said the Mossad drone strike you earlier. It did not. Said, did you see Trump's speech and call Shifty a pencil neck? I didn't see his most recent speech. I just watched the one that he gave in response to Iran. And so Stephenson, that's a great question. Who was on the plane? So the Ukrainian plane went down. I saw some numbers, but I don't know exactly offhand, so I don't want to just call out anything. But it was a lot of people. And I saw something, I believe, about a lot of Canadians, I believe. So I think I saw something about Canadians. So it's unfortunate that the Canadians are on there. So regardless, lives were lost. And once again, what we'll never know what truly happened, even though people are suspecting it was an Iranian missile, which, when the stuff flying up in the air, it's just like when people shoot, like it hits something, it comes down somewhere. They are destroying the new monetary system. Think faster, payments task force, think executive order 13772, think on demand liquidity. The SWIFT system will be replaced. Hill Chapman, I don't doubt it 100%. Everything we're seeing right now is all a distraction for what's really going on behind the scenes. And it happens to be in the monetary realm. It happens to be with the shift of power, more than likely from the east to the west, from the west to the east, rather. And I would imagine all the too big to fail banks, as I had an interview earlier with Louis Camersano, and we are talking about just how the banking sector always spreads its tentacles throughout the world. So it's a global economy when it comes to banking. So my what I actually said to him, this is off air, but it was, if you look at how the monetary system is structured, ultimately central banks are, technically speaking, they're parasites on the public. They're parasites on the government. It's a form of, I don't want to be too harsh with it, but this is the best way to give you a good idea of how it really boils down. It's a parasite on the public. It's a parasite on the government. It's been a cancer to Uncle Sam. And the reason I say a cancer on Uncle Sam is because you think about what happens when you have a parasite on your body. It drains the life force out of you, ultimately till it kills you. And the same thing with cancer. From what I understand, it's cells that are going haywire, and it's one of the things where it spreads, and if it's not checked, it kills the host. It kills. So ultimately, that's what we're looking at now. So what I mean by, I don't like using all those harsh, dark words. Okay, it ends the life cycle of its victim. So simply look at what's going on now. Like through the issuance of debt, i.e., credit, the central banks of the world have been given authority by the government. So all governments in every country has given the central banks authority to operate on their behalf, to run their finances. And so they basically do that through interest rates. So they control the elasticity of money, credit and flow, all the stuff like that. And the central banks do all that in the best interest of the commercial banks, which is their shareholders, on behalf of the government. So you look at that very cycle there. Credit is brought into existence not to necessarily directly benefit the user. It's more so to benefit the issuer, because who receives interest off of something is brought into existence out of nothing? The banks. So ultimately, by extending so much credit, so much debt, look at our world. Look at our world right now. It was a $280 trillion in global debt. So every number in that 280 trillion is something that was brought into existence out of nothing, as if it spreads. Our monetary system, if credit freezes up, if the banks stop lending, that's like saying the parasite stops and stops sucking the life out of it. It stops sucking the life out of it. Or, for example, when it comes to cancer, it's like the cancer stops spreading and goes into remission. If the banking system was to go into remission, as far as them to stop issuing credit or people stop borrowing, game over. So you see how Uncle Sam is trapped. Therefore, one of the biggest problems is the fact that the holders of okay, here's another analogy. Okay, I was gonna say, okay, I'm gonna use that one. But the holders of, and the ones dependent upon the credit being created and the reserves being created and the bonds being purchased and the currency being issued are the public, the citizens. We do that. We work for the very same thing that the cancer and the parasite creates. So once again, what we're witnessing right now, underneath everything, that's all coming to an end. All the hosts, which happen to be sovereign governments, are tapped out with debt. There's nothing they can do. They can't ever withdraw back. They can't admit that that's the system. So what they're going to do, they're going to create everything. So right now we're in the biggest experiment imaginable, because once again, Uncle Sam, as I did a video a couple weeks ago, is on life support. There's not much he can really do at this point. They can attempt to raise taxes, or they can just continue to ride this thing out until it kills over. And it's only two choices. Like, there's no fixing the system, because the system is one big problem. So everything we see right now with Iran, what we see with the all the stuff in DC, impeachment, all that stuff like that, is all one big charade to hide the real problem. Is the fact that within this decade, in my personal opinion, we're going to see the shifting of everything and the rebranding of our monetary system to something else. And in doing so, the 200, I think it's 200 or 300 trillion dollars of global debt, includes corporate, household debt, governmental debt, debt. Everybody's debt is wrapped into that number, not including the derivatives, which happen to be side bets amongst the banks. I mean, they're gambling with your funds. So all that has to be squared away. And so the only way it can be squared away is to one big massive default. And the default will look like the canceling of everything ever issued. And it happens to be reflected in paper and digits that are in our accounts, in our hands, in our pockets. And that's just basically what's going on. So all this Iran stuff, where they shoot missiles back and forth, is either going to speed things up or it's going to slow things down. And right now, I believe by Trump not issuing and firing back is a way of slowing things down to not escalate this war. Because if you escalate the war, that means there's going to have to be some type of act in Congress. And it looks like the House has removed the power for him to issue a war act or whatever. So therefore, we need debt in order to go to war. Because once again, we don't have a savings. Uncle Sam has no savings. You realize that. So some people might say that there's savings in Fort Knox and they're saving in this New York Federal Reserve vaults in a form of gold. But I personally wouldn't live my life thinking that the Federal Reserve and the Uncle Sam, the Treasury, they're actually been good stewards with their financial matters to the point where all the debt notes issued can be backed up by something all of a sudden in a system that's driven by debt. So they can create as much digits and paper as they want, but you can't create all that much money in the form of metal. So yeah, all this is one big charade, but it's just interesting how, an article here, and you probably won't be able to see it. I'll probably dim the light a little bit, but for those that haven't had a chance to check it out, I would encourage you to do so. So let me see here. It says Trump administration announces more economic sanctions against Iran. So how often is it that you're in a fist fight and somebody jab you one, you take it, and all of a sudden you just say, hey man, you owe me money, or I'm gonna find a way to tax you more. Like you get punched, typically you're gonna swing back. And the fact that that's not happening, that lets me know that this is all one big show. And Trump, more than likely, it says Mike is missing the key link, which is oil. Money is a proxy for oil. So currency, so that's the petrodollar system. So all the Middle East conflict stuff is all about the oil. So I definitely understand that and know that. So that is the underlying, that's the glue to all of this. Oil, energy, makes the world go round. The Federal Reserve has reserves. Okay. Did I read something about the resources on Australia and the Amazon forest? I'm not sure about that. 300 trillion in derivatives alone. So James, I want to say I've seen figures where it talks about we've reached the quadrillion. So if you type in derivatives and you see some graphs and the inverted pyramid at the very top, I've seen a number that says 1 quadrillion. Like, I'm not even sure how to spell quadrillion. So to think that we've passed trillion and we're in the quadrillions now with things that are only done in the banking and the financial realm. The average person watching right now, it's good to say you don't have any, unless you're specifically a trader and a derivatives broker or whatever, most likely you don't have any direct linkage to derivatives outside of just the derivatives of claims on things that you have already. With your retirement portfolio is a claim on wealth that is in somebody else's possession, and your bank account, well, all the money you have in the bank belongs to the bank, and so they're giving you a derivative in the form of a receipt saying that you have X amount of dollars in there. So all those things there. So I saw a super chat. Let me acknowledge that. Debt and Regret says, do you honestly think the next monetary system will be gold backed? Debt and Regret, great question. And my personal opinion is no. And so I know a lot of people believe that gold and silver will be reinstituted into our monetary system. And the reason I believe that that is not possible is because I don't foresee any government or any financial institution ever being willing to admit openly in this day and age to the public the importance of gold and silver as a alternative to their issuance of debt notes. And so as we see a progression moving forward with technology. And so because of all this technology, everything that's coming forward has to be new, and of the blockchain and cryptos and all that narrative there is designed specifically to take us forward. And so they're not going to take us backwards to something that has been considered money for thousands of years, because it puts handcuffs on them. Because if they start talking about gold and silver being reinstated into the monetary system, that's going to educate the millennial generation, which happens to be the workhorses for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And so if the younger generation found out about gold and silver in a savings way, then they wouldn't buy into the crypto adoption. And so if you knew that having claims on things such as receipts, which is, digital assets in the form of, whatever that's redeemable or whatever, so a digitally backed whatever, if you knew that it was better to actually hold the actual tangible asset itself because of risk, you wouldn't want a claim on it. Therefore, you wouldn't want, a piece of paper saying it's backed by gold again. You would rather have the gold, because you know that more than likely it's going to be manipulated. They're going to print more than they have in actual physical assets. So it'll be hard to get people to buy into the adoption. So right now, though, the big push is the adoption for the digital transformation that's underway. And Bitcoin, in my opinion, was the introduction of the future as far as what they want us to believe is the best option. And so that's why I personally don't 100% go full steam ahead saying, buy Bitcoin, buy all that stuff like that. But the further we push that, the easier it will be for them to strategically place us in a very tight situation where, even though paper at this current moment is not a good store of value, it's a horrible store of value, but it's still something you can physically hold, and it still is able to be used temporarily. And so once we go solely digital, there's no going back to anything tangible. So you can have your gold and silver in your possession, but I imagine it's going to become very burdensome to try to transact in it, to try to actually use it back in some form of fashion, because they're going to try to tax the heck out of it. Because the goal is to erase gold and silver out of the millennials' mind, so that Generation Z and Y, if I'm saying that correctly, which happen to be the 30 to 20-year-olds and the teens, they want them to know nothing about metals. And so I come across kids all the time, and everyone has a Cash App card. I see more Cash App cards and more. I'm learning about more digital payment wallets like Venmo and Cash App and whatever else is out there. So all the young generation know is the convenience of using their phone for everything. They would not want a 16-year-old, 15-year-old talking about, you got you some gold, you got you some silver. That's not a part of the game. So to answer your story, we can't go backwards. We got to go forward. And all this adoption push is to get us geeked and to accepting digital, so that when they come out with whatever it is they want to come out with, it's going to be hard to go against it, because if you do, it's going to be illegal. Therefore, you're going to be considered a criminal. Therefore, it's going to be punishable by law. Therefore, you're boxed into a corner. But that's what they want. So that's what this is all about. So that's why I'm more on the slow side of things. I'm not rushing solely into digital assets solely, because once we go solely digital, there's no going back physical in the form of it actually having something that you can transact without there being problems. Says Mike, the problem isn't paper or the apps. It's the states actually held the gold to back each unit of currency. There will be no problem while being convenient. So once again, we're using the word backed or back to back something. I'm to the point now where I'm not sold on anything that's backed by anything, because apart from convenience, that's going to be the biggest ploy to get people to sign up for anything. Is it's more convenient. You don't have to carry it. You don't have to put it in your pocket. It's secure. It's safe. It's encrypted. Right, but it's one of the things where it's still based upon you trusting technology. And so just like tonight, I logged on to try to talk to you guys, to share some thoughts with you. And so with no fault of my own, I'm using an app to a service that is becoming problematic It's in the form of the host of this stream here. So I'm on this phone. I logged in. I'm streaming from this phone, and all of a sudden I'm talking, and the app just closed. I didn't get a warning or nothing. The app closed, which disrupted my flow. And then I got on this phone, and then I'm having problems. I had to reboot the phone. I'm thinking like, I don't have these problems normally. Why all of a sudden now? So I wonder, because once again, when we go solely digital, you're at the mercy of developers, of coders, of all that technical stuff that your average person don't know about. It's probably not hard to kill an app, because there's a back door to everything. So if there's a back door to everything, if they don't want you to say something, like, so right now, I made the title of this video a flag, two flags, and some words. And listen to this. To log into this thing tonight, you get 60 characters. You get 60 characters in your title. I had 60 on the dot. It said it was too long. So I'm thinking like, but it says 60 to 60. So if you're above 60, it highlights it. It won't let you move forward. So I shrunk it. So the title was much longer than this. I shrunk it to 60. It's too long. I went to 58. It's too long. I'm thinking like, hold on. So you see the problems I had just getting to you guys tonight that I've never had before. So with that being the case, what I'm getting at is the fact is these digital problems I'm having, to me, are not random. So if I'm having problems just talking to you, trying to share some story, talk about things that you won't hear about in mainstream news from a unique or from a different perspective, it's good to say that your app on your phone, when you go to spend or save, there's back doors to it. Therefore, if you feel comfortable trusting in digital, then you're going to have, the future is all digital. So you're going to have more than enough time to deal with that outside of the physical aspect. So another thing is, I mentioned this before in my Bitcoin skeptic video, of how you notice how you can't take your battery out your phone. So I got two phones here. Can't take the battery out of either one of them. So what that tells me is that if you can't take your battery out, you can't just all of a sudden disconnect and go powerless in this regard here. So my phone is definitely always on. And even when I cut it off, it's still on, I'm sure, because there's back doors. So I'm going down a long trail, but you get my point. Once you go digital, ain't no going back. So it is what it is. So when the monetary system comes to play, you think they could crush the true value of gold. I don't think they can crush the true value of gold, because gold, as a chemical element from the earth, everything from the earth is what we need to survive. God put it here deliberately for us to benefit from and to use to create with. And so one thing I love mentioning is how everything you visibly see now was created, and everything came from under or on the earth. So the raw materials for life and to sustain life happens to be on or in the earth. So gold can't be crushed, because gold has a use case, and man has used it as money. Now, until they can, alchemy, until they can create gold out of nothing, which they've already have done. They created a smidget. It's an atom or two off from what the chemical elements and all that stuff is of gold and silver. It's off an element or two, which means they're going to continue to try to create pure gold, 0.99 24 karat gold, because if they can, that'll be easier to make us go digital, because they're going to prove to us that gold is not worth anything. So I think they're going to try to tax gold, but I don't think they're going to. They can't put it in a position where it's of no value, because they know, central banks know, all the old oligarchies and families, they know. It's just your average person that went to school in this era, they don't know. I saw some questions. Says gold can't be made on Earth, not hot enough, only in stars. Rolf, no doubt, but they're trying. And so I would imagine that mankind always has, it's kind of built in man to want to be God. So everybody's trying. Like right now, I saw a commercial about you can clone your dog. And it was a happy-go-lucky commercial, like, call this number, 1-800 clone your dog. You can preserve the life of your dog and create another one. I'm thinking like, hold on, like, since when do they advertise about cloning dogs? So what that tells me is that if they're willing to clone your dog and you can pay to have your animal cloned, it's good to say there's some people out there that have already tried cloning themselves and cloning, and they've probably already mastered it. So once again, once it hit advertising, once it hits the mainstream, it's already been done. Therefore, there's probably some people out here. There's two of them already. I don't know how they're gonna put a soul in there, so I don't know how it's gonna play out. But they're gonna find ways to remove God out of the equation as well. That's just a part of how this thing has to go. Is it economical to extract the gold? Is it economical at this current moment? I don't really follow the mining sector, even though I have gentlemen on the show that I interview, and so I get a different scoop. But at the current price to get it out of the ground, I believe it's not the current value of 1600. I think gold might be above the out of ground costs for mining, smelting, and all that stuff that goes into it. I think it might be above with 1600. But I remember covering this 3 or 4 years ago when gold dropped down to 1100, I think, and I was kind of excited. And at that point, I remember having some people on the show that was saying that it's not a value to bring out because you're losing. And that's why I've seen reports about all types of reports about all type of gold mines shutting down, closing the doors because they're selling and they're not really making enough to pay back their debts. Everybody borrowed a lot. It says Big Ware says there's lots of gold in the Grand Canyon, Stephenson. So great point. And so Big Ware, I'm familiar with that. And I don't doubt it because it's become federal lands for some reason. So that means they're hiding something. So whether it's some type of, it's something, I don't believe in the extraterrestrial stuff, but no doubt that's a lot of rich and fertile ground that has been untapped. And it's federal grounds because they don't want anyone to tap into it because of what's in the ground. So no doubt it's there. Problem is, if it's federal grounds, therefore the government they will make the best call for themselves and not the people. Therefore, I don't see them publicly announcing or making it public that there's 30 million tons of gold in Grand Canyon that we can pull out in half of that in a year if we choose to, and that'll make us solvent again. So Uncle Sam is in the red. And I don't think they'll admit that gold is in the ground because that means they're going to admit that gold is real money, admit that everything that Uncle Sam has done between now and the time they took us off the gold standard has been the reason as to why Uncle Sam is almost flatlined. So the narrative will be they will never confess in any form or fashion. So that's why I don't see them going to the Grand Canyon. And even if we come to a worst case scenario, I believe the powers that be will be okay with the U.S. being downgraded to second world or third world because a lot of people stand to gain a lot more wealth. I think there's over the last decade since this 0% interest rates, we've had more millionaires created due to the fact that they know what debt is about and they know how to profit from it. So those people know that there's going to be a recession that we're in now, currently, I believe. But the depression aspect is where there's going to be the greatest wealth transfer ever because you think about all the pension money that's stored away. You think about all the investment funds and all those digital things, they're going to be transferred. And on the receiving end will be the people who own businesses and own all the things the money's going to be absorbed into. Therefore, the having credit accessible the way we've had it for all of my life has to come to an end because if you go into any second world, third world countries, if you don't have cash, if you don't have a down deposit, you don't do nothing. Therefore, people have been able to actually build shacks and shelters with cash because they got a tin roof with some tires on it, some clay walls, and wood for windows. But that was done with cash. Think about here. What could we do if we didn't have credit? You wouldn't be driving your car more than likely. You wouldn't be living in the size house you are in now. And you probably wouldn't have gone to college because that's, government debt. They extend you some credit. So think about the lifestyles we've created because of credit. That won't always be the case. We have unlimited credit because we have the reserve status. You lose the reserve status, you lose pretty much investment and interest and everything in your infrastructure. There's going to be not much investment to where we're going to witness what it's like to actually have to depend upon true capitalism, which is to have capital set aside. And if everybody's broke or their wealth has been lost in a crash or crisis, there's not going to be much capital floating around. Therefore, how does the system keep running? It will not be the same. Therefore, there's going to be a downgrading of our lifestyles, which I'm of the mindset based upon how we live in comparison to the rest of the world. I think that we're due for a correction or a realization as to what's going on. Omnibone says, I wonder how much Bitcoin aliens are holding. Does God have any Satoshis? I know you're joking. I know what a fusion reactor is, but we are talking fusing hydrogen and helium. The heaviest elements are a completely different deal. Okay. There is streets in heaven. I like how we get spiritual. What does heaven look like? Great question, Tony. I would encourage you to read the book of Revelations. I believe it's chapter 9, if I'm not mistaken. You get a good depiction of what it could look like. And it looks a lot better than anything I've seen here on this planet. So I am definitely interested in seeing it myself. Gold is abundant in heaven, yet it is worthless here. Worthless here? Worthless there. Worthless. It's not worthless because from what we've been told through Revelations, it's used to pave the roads and it's a finer quality than what we have here. So it's good enough to walk on. And I'm assuming the pathway leading to the throne, it's probably a very radiant and beautiful sight. So I like how Tone getting religious tonight. I like that, Tone. It says it says, if God made this world so beautiful, how much greater will heaven be? Woo-wee. Containing those heavier fusions. Okay, yeah. So let's get back to the story at hand. So I went off the tangent a little bit. I appreciate the interaction, appreciate the questions. And I regret that I wasn't able to start the stream off as normal because of the interference due to an app. So my app crashed twice on 2 different phones. What a coincidence, huh? So what I'm going to do is actually get back to some articles. So get your guys' thoughts on this Iranian situation. So Iran will have more sanctions. And so it says, in addition, Mnuchin outlines 17 specific sanctions against Iran's largest steel and iron manufacturers, along with 3 entities based in a city and a vessel involved in the transfer of products. And so with these sanctions, the U.S. is looking to cripple the Iranian economy even more so. And so sanctions have proven not to be effective because if you cut off one avenue, all it does is forces their government to be creative, and creativity is the mother of all inventions. Everything starts from an idea. And so the Iranians just pivot left. You contact your Russian connects, you contact your China connects, you get on the chip system, you get on the Russian system, you do a little cryptocurrency transactions, and you got a whole economy. And unfortunately, because they're not allowed to participate in the global system, then their citizens suffer. But the government, I'm assuming, has funds to continue their nuclear fusion, which they've made it clear they're not going to stop. So for some reason, they're finding enough money to keep their nuclear program going. So how well does those sanctions actually work? And they've been proven not to work, because every nation that's sanctioned have already started developing their own cryptocurrency and their alternative banking payment system. So the U.S. has actually sped up the de-dollarization process by passing sanctions, because Russia now has its own crypto, China has a crypto, Venezuela has a crypto, Iran is starting a crypto, and they have these payment methods. So once again, they're making the dollar that much more obsolete, because once these alternative payment methods gets up and running, that's going to make it easier for them to say, what do we need dollars for? So just, something that people should consider. And so I'm actually trying to find the live stream I'm on so that I can put the number in there, put some details in there. And so just a couple other stories that came up when I typed in the whole Trump administration situation. And let me see, I came across something else. I can't find it, so I'll let it go. But anyway, So what I want to do is just check in, get your guys' thoughts on the sanction aspect. So to sum this up, what I believe is going to transpire in the next 72 plus hours, if we didn't go to war, which was an untypical response, and the House has passed some legislation saying that Trump can't go to war, if he chooses to decide to send some hot rockets over there and violates the House, that's going to be direct cause for official inquiry again to impeachment. So he will put himself in the hot seat if he goes against the House. So now it's about to escalate even to greater heights because the House has now passed a law. It has to go through the Senate and everything else, but have their own crypto. See any correlation? Ooh, good point. And all those nations there, including Facebook, happens to be in all those countries except China. So yeah, so it's buffering again. Anyway, but I'm trying to figure out how does Trump steal? I have the call in portion. Give me 1 second. Let me give you the number. So 313-462-0027 is the number. The phone lines are available, but due to the fact the app has crashed a couple times on me, I haven't been able to put the number in the description below. So I'll do that right now for those that have interest in calling in. And so other than that, if you got a thought you want to share, feel free to do so. Let me put this number in there real quick, and then you guys can call in. And so I'm on the computer trying to do this, and the computer is now acting a little slow. So yeah, so it's just technical issues all night long. So if I'm having technical issues, and this is not really major stuff, imagine the type of technical issues you can have when your entire world revolves around technology. If your finances is all digital, and if you're not technical, if you don't know how to code and know how to go and undo and secure, you stand to lose a lot, if not all, of your funds at the whim of somebody on the back end deciding that they don't want you to have your money that day, or you get hacked, or the entity gets hacked. So security will be a major issue moving forward. And it's one of the things where most people are not aware on how to secure anything. So I'm putting the number in the chat. Let me give you 4620027. All right. So beneath right now, there should be a number. Let me know if it is there. Give me a call. It'll be on for a couple more minutes. It says if you go all digital currency, this is game over. But yet, due to debit cards, credit cards, that has opened the door for everybody to feel comfortable going solely digital. Because if you go digital by you swiping a card, now they're saying that swiping is too strenuous on your arm. You shouldn't have to swipe no more. That's old fashioned. Now what do? You just stick your card in and you put your code in. But now that's too much. Now what they want you to do is take your phone and just tap it. Boop. And transaction. So what's next after that? Oh, that's so taking your phone and tapping it is going to be too much. Then what are you going to do? You got to look into it. You got to put your eye up there. Boop. You know what I'm saying? Then what's next? Don't worry about it. Don't just think it. You just think the thoughts, because you're going to have a chip on the side of your head. So that's where all this is going. So, I'm assuming everybody can see that. So if you see that transition, you see that's a trend that's just happening. It's going to happen. I follow a lot of people that talk about AR, VR, and drones and all that type of stuff. And they're excited about all that. And it's pros and cons to it. But it's one of the things like for your average person who thinks from a consumption mind standpoint, they don't know how to take advantage of it to make their lives better in a productive sense. They only know how to use it as a consumer. And so they're going to come out all types of gadgets to get you psyched up, and people are going to buy it to consume it. And all they're doing is using it to market to you and to collect your data to basically tell you what you want when you want it, because they know how you respond to everything. Once they get a hold of your data, the way that they have, every app has, cookies to where they can see exactly what you want, what you buy. Once they can market to you directly, consistently, you're trapped, what I'm saying? Because it's going to be hard to resist the temptation to buy if that's all you know is consumption anyway. So Yeah. But anyway, I've been ranting too long. What's the call-in number? It's 313-462-0027. It should be beneath this video. So if you scroll right now, you should see it beneath this video. And give me a call, and we can get you on here. I'll be willing to take a couple calls if you call in. Right about now, and we can get you on here. So let me make sure it's there. So yeah, put the number in there, 313-462-0027. Give me a call, and love to hear your voice, love to hear what you think. My data says, okay. Mossad drone Mike again. Mossad. Say it again, Mike. So if you just, as you're watching this, look in the description, and the number is right there. Mike, great interview with George. Interview with uneducated economists next. I will definitely reach out to him. And so I'm familiar with him. I actually, in talking with George, he mentioned it or whatnot. So I'm going to definitely connect with him. And so, yeah, I love connecting with a lot of people that are in the same realm. So I definitely will be open to connecting with him. So I'll do that. So Jesse James scrolled up a little bit, says, the Nixon 71 moment is coming soon. That's why Mnuchin is our Treasury Secretary, plow into silver the morning after the announcement. So Jesse James, are you saying that Mnuchin will be the one that reopens the gold window? Or what are you referring to by Mnuchin and the gold? And so I will be interested in seeing and hearing exactly what that is. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike, what's going on, man? It's Karan from Chicago.
Karan from Chicago. How you doing, my friend? What you thinking tonight?
Nothing much, man. I was just, well, not to say nothing much, man. It's not the time to be thinking nothing much. But I was just wanting to know, man, have you ever read a book? It's called Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike.
I have not. Morals and Dogma. I have not read it. Give me the
Okay.
quick synopsis of what it's about.
So basically, it talks about Freemasonry and different things like that, different deep details of society that kind of like what we touched on, the presidency and the deep state and all these different type of things. But the thing about it is, he actually he talks about World War One. He predicted that. He predicted World War II, and he also predicted World War III. All right, and the thing about it is, everything that he predicted about that, as far as us falling under that one world order and how we'll have nothing else to believe in, the way they're going to break us down to the way we have nothing else to believe in, man. I think it's something that everybody should, you might have your different beliefs, but it's something to at least explore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
because he predicted the first two. I mean, hell, I think you'll get the first. I think you get the next one right too. So
yeah.
We'll see.
I see, as you're talking, I looked it up. So by Albert Pike, published in 1871, and I believe it's free on Google Books. So I will definitely check that out because I do enjoy reading 19th century literature and 18th and 20th century. So I will check that out, my man. Thanks for putting me on game.
No problem, Mike, man. Take care, man.
All right, be good. Thanks.
Yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I always get a chance to learn something, man. That's why it's great to connect with other people. So I'm bookmark that and read that. So I see somebody comment there about, they asked about reading a book. So I'm assuming it sounds like he's saying that I don't read, which is good, which is fair. Okay. I got some very good titles that have read. The book he is selling fear. The book he is selling is fear. Yeah, like that's another thing. Like that book there, written in 1871. So I haven't read, and so go to if you want some older reading that is quick and easy, go to the Rethinking the Dollar store and download some free books from the 18th centuries. And the writing style's different, but yet at that time everything wasn't under one conglomerate of everybody, every newspaper and everything being owned by a single family like it is now. So you were able to speak your mind. So actually the criticism in a lot of these books is quite interesting because they were able to tell the truth and share their opinions because it was so dispersed and so decentralized in a sense to where you can find all types of perspectives that counter a mainstream narrative. So as Federal Reserve admits it pumped more than $6 trillion to Wall Street in recent 6-week period. $6 trillion. And so that's supposed to be on loan at that. I probably imagine with the whole repurchasing of all those they call them assets, but once again, if you know it can never be paid off, is it really an asset? So it's all based upon some having another fool to buy it off your hands, and that's what basically it comes down to. It says read Social Problems by Henry George. Social Problems. Okay, I'll check that out. Information isn't fear, knowledge is power. I like that. I like that. I dig that. What else we got here? So a coffee will be $50 a bargain. Don't live in fear. Yeah, so yeah, perfect love casts out fear, man. And that's one thing I like about, I can go down the road about with scriptural stuff, but you know, faith is one of the things that is counter to fear. Like if you're truly in faith, what are you actually fearing? It says, hey Mike, what would you say China and Russia are thinking as options for Iran US situation? Great point. Great point. And so clearly Vladimir Putin was in Turkey the moment those hot things was flying, signing a deal to open up the Turk Stream, the gas pipeline that's going to supply to Europe. It's good to say pretty soon they won't be using dollars. The dollars paid for the pipeline, but eventually they're going to accept payment in rubles if they haven't already. So I'd imagine China and Russians paying close attention. And I believe opposite, or counter to what we are told, that they are probably, I want to say that they are probably a lot closer in conversation than we are told, because I believe that they're strategically working together in a sense to issue the world into that next system. And so clearly the US has to know that China is being built up for the next world order, because the Belt and Road Initiative is a whole new economy in and of itself once it's complete from end of Europe all the way to China. So that whole road there paves the way for production, growth, everything that we no longer have here, because we're no longer leading the world in manufacturing or industrial nothing. All thing we do here on this side is consume, and over there they grow and build. So with the Belt and Road Initiative that the U.S. is not a part of, we know we have nothing to do with that. We haven't been invited to no BRICS meetings or nothing like that. So they've already made plans for how things will transition. Now it's a matter of giving us all types of distractions, such as war and political chaos. All that's a part of the game plan, because underneath all that, they already worked out everything. I believe they strategically, in their own opinion, in their own mind, they already got everything laid out. They know exactly what they want to see happen. And then you have to ask yourself the question, if they're building infrastructure for that next world order, China and Russia has heavy presence on the continent of Africa. So they're going to be using African labor for manufacturing to supply it to the Belt and Road Initiative as well. And they've already made it clear that the dollar will not necessarily be needed in any of that. So the dollar, their reserves, is right now being used to build infrastructure. So all those treasuries, all those reserves is what they're cashing out to buy and to build in Africa. The Turk Stream pipeline, which goes around Ukraine now, I would imagine that was probably built with dollars. So they're putting their dollars to use. So the question is, are you putting your dollars to use? They're spending those things because they don't want to be stuck holding the bag. And so once they are done spending, or give or take, they're going to try to get rid of as much of their reserves as they can, slowly and surely, without causing problems, because they know that the Federal Reserve, with this $6 trillion, as Spirit King just mentioned, that $6 trillion is all digital illusions of whatever. Eventually, as I always mention, that's going to have to trickle out into the mainstream economy in the form of inflation. And then once that stuff picks up, there's no reeling it back in. So they're going to have to print more, and then they're going to think that's the problem. So they're going to print more, and then the bank's going to want more. And so when they start printing like mad, China and Russia by that time will probably have dwindled down their reserves, having got out of the dollar. And probably at that point, they're going to be issuing and announcing their own payment method, because the BRICS, I think it was a Brazilian president before he left his last term, admitted that a part of the whole strategy for the BRICS was to reestablish their own gold-backed currency. I want to say by now it's supposed to have been announced. But of course, the Brazilian guy's no longer president. He's in jail, I think. Got caught up in a scandal. I wonder why. And so South Africa's, and they're in hyperinflation right now, or in inflation. And so there's a lot of the countries now which are having problems. So they're not on the same page. So pretty soon, they already know what they want to do. Now it's just a matter of the how do you get to that next step. And so that's why I believe these trade deals, which are not trade deals, because you can't have a debtor nation calling shots on their creditors. And so as one of my a Bible quote is the servant is slave to the lender. And so we are technically dependent upon them sending us stuff. If they don't send us stuff, we have no, Walmart's empty. All your favorite stores is pretty much empty if they don't send us stuff. And what are we sending them? We're sending them debt. We're sending them reserves, treasury, all that stuff like that they're using to buy real stuff with. They're using that stuff to build and grow stuff for their economy. So long story short, don't be stuck holding the bag, because the bag is only going to get bigger and it will purchase less. And if you know that their only way they can get out of this or attempt to get out of this is to extend their balance sheet by creating fictitious reserves to prop things up, to keep everything liquid, those closer to the spigot benefit. Those that are farther away, such as you and I, will be left holding instruments, working for instruments that they're just printing out of nowhere and creating out of nowhere. And so if you don't take advantage of this opportunity to buy stuff that has value now, that preserves purchasing power now, then oh well, what can I say to you? Because you know better. If you've been following alternative media, you know better. If you know better, do better. And then, enjoy the ride, because it's going to be bumpy. And that's why I'm excited to encourage people. So people talking about fear tonight. A lot of fear, a lot of fear, a lot of fear. There should be no fear if you have a game plan for yourself. And I'm excited because my personal strategy solution is to focus on what I can control. And it happens to be my unique areas of gifting. And so I'm excited. Once again, I got to give you guys a heads up. For those that haven't heard it already, up above, type in giftpreneur. And it talks about, that's my solution. That's my contribution to you guys outside of just giving you bad news. And, it's practical now. Get guns, get gold, get silver. And as Gerald Sante get a getaway plan. He's been saying that for 20 years. So I've interviewed probably close to 100 people. And so everyone typically says the same thing. Get your metals, get your water, get your food, get out of cities and stuff like that, which is what we consider to be practical advice now. It's practical now. It's called preparation. So you got preppers that live and do all that, whatever. So we all know what to do according to our foreknowledge based upon what we think is going to occur. But while we're doing all that, I've realized, and this is just my personal opinion, having talked about this subject matter for over 5 years now, that most people have become addicted to hearing bad news or people are getting used to anticipating hearing about the problems, but not many people are talking about how each and every one of you are responsible for your own solution outside of what you already know. Like, if you got gold, silver, you got all that stuff, sure, okay. What good will it do you if you have to pick up and run? Can you take it all with you? Probably not. But one thing you can take with you, if you develop it now, is your unique area of gifting, your skill set, your gift. I like to say it, your seed, which is what you're carrying. Then that's me going down the spiritual realm. So for those that are interested, go to Giftpreneurs and you'll get an idea. For those that are not, keep doing what you're doing. Keep chasing after bad news, and be whatever you focus on, you get more of. So be careful what you focus on. So you focus on bad news, you're gonna find it. Now, trying to switch over to some good news. So the good news starts with you. If you don't create your own good news, then who will? Nobody. So anyway, I've been ranting for too long. It's almost an hour. I typically don't go this long, but I was having a good time. It's Friday night. Everybody sleep, except me. And I'm just, got me a little ice cold beverage here, or used to be ice cold, but about to chill out and then get ready for have a good weekend. So yeah, if that been the case, got some things coming up this month. I'm excited. I'm not gonna give you a heads up yet, but you're definitely gonna enjoy it as well. I'm gonna make sure I include you guys in on it. And other than that, it's been 1 hour as of now. So if you've enjoyed this back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. Just click the button beneath here, thumbs up. And if you don't like it, thumbs down. It's fine. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I'm just trying to build a community to share with you guys and include you in on this journey called life, because we are all a part of it. And so wishing you guys the best. So with that being the case, be blessed, be safe, have a good weekend. Next weekend, I got some good interviews coming. So make sure you guys come back for some live streams. And we're gonna, further break down this situation that we're in. So other than that, be blessed, be safe, enjoy your weekend. Peace. I'll see you guys later.